It's okay. You can figure it out again.
Yeah. Just like Gonzaga has to. Because,
God.
ooh, the
God.
boy, they got thumped. I did not foresee this. I really thought this was going to look more like UCLA. Like, after watching that UCLA game, I was like, oh, this is what happens when you just let your pros run. Okay, cool. This is okay. And that is not what Baylor came to do at all.
Like, it. One, let me just say that I feel like, just me, and like if I'm ranking games, right? As far as like the Final Four games between the men's and women's and like the national title games, like it was the second most disappointing game I watched. The other one was, of course, like the Baylor Houston game, where they basically did what they did with the Zags. They came out and got you down bad in the first half, and like you got your stuff back together, but like by then you're 20 points down almost, and they're kind of just cruising. Um, but I mean, and like I've seen some stuff talking about. Well, okay, I mean, people's you know how people are dumb with hot takes
Yeah.
and stuff like being like the Zags are overrated. I mean, like if you want to talk about like the idea that maybe they were historically good, then I mean, in fairness, like being beat by the only other team who was considered to have a realistic shot at getting you, who was also considered arguably historically good, doesn't
Exactly.
necessarily stop you from being historically good. As I'm like talking about it out loud, but like they weren't. It's just kind of like they lost to the one team. Everybody was like, "This is the only team that's got a real shot for real" from the beginning of the season, because both teams were monsters the whole way through, except for like what 2 games Baylor lost, I think. But like they and Gonzaga in particular ran through everybody, like getting here. They ran through good teams, they ran through mediocre teams. It didn't really matter. But like it was shocking. Like Baylor came out hot early. That not only did they come out hot, they came out with super intense D. And granted, I wanted Gonzaga to win because I'd kind of just like to see it happen. But like the defense that Baylor came out with and really kind of kept up the whole game was like, as someone who likes defense, that stuff was fantastic. Like a lot of ball pressure, just a lot of they weren't scared of contact. Um, and
They
like,
even pressed a little bit.
hmm,
They pressed a little bit at some point.
yeah, and it's just like, and that feel like that intensity really like bothered the Zags really the entire game, right? Because even when they weren't like, even when it didn't result in a turnover, like the Baylor was like getting hands on passes, um, was like forcing dudes to pick up their dribbles to like make question like the Zags were pressured into making iffy passes and otherwise just like they didn't do enough work to get open. In fairness to them, right? And it's you say in fairness, like, and because this is basically a backhanded compliment to like most defense, but like most defenses you'll run across don't play like they're not intense like Baylor's defense was, right? And there are only a handful of teams that'll run defense that'll be up in your face like that. Like, and like you might have a dude, right, on teams that's really like that, but like you don't the entire squad's not usually doing that. But that's what Baylor did. And they did that defense was amazing. They came out shooting I think it was like at one point 60%. And mind you, a lot of the shots that they knocked down were contested, right? Um and they abused Gonzaga on the boards, right? And like
Mark Vital. Mm.
Vital, Tachua, like just it was and like and in fairness, right? like they might have had an advantage on the boards, kind of regardless of what the Zags did. But like part of that problem, and like I watched this with my father, and like we'll just like talk about stuff. But like one of the problems, right, was like they kept they Baylor picked on Drew Timme, right? And like I don't mean this to say like they stuck him on islands out on the perimeter, and like if you for most of the game kind of just let it happen, like you didn't just like no Timme, do not switch on the pick and roll, like go back down to your dude or something. No, like just they pick now like some dude like some 6'4" kid is on Vital or Tachua, who are both bigger and just have way more muscle on them. And, you know, the shot goes up, even if they don't hit it over Timme, which they tended to do. Like, those boys weren't about to out rebound Tachua and Vital and, like, the Baylor front court. One, the Baylor front court was boxing out hard. But also, they were boxing out hard, but also they were just bigger and stronger. And like their one like dude who had that size for real was contesting the jump shot right out on the perimeter. A dude he had no hope of holding for real anyway. And like if that didn't happen where the mismatch happened, it was just like there was a dude just wide open down low, right, for the easy dump off and whatever. And like I think I've seen where some folks feel like I guess Timme got abused by Tachua and Vital, and like I don't really think that's true because they didn't really abuse him for like the guards abused him like like that was disrespectful what they did to him for the entire game, but like it was more like he was never really in a position to do anything about them. And in fairness, I think few recognized some of this, right? Because like at one point in the first half they went to a 2-3, which did kind of work for a little bit. You know, then dudes started getting into the middle and like hitting mid ranges, and they kind of came out of it. But like, because like if you're few, right, you get to a point where just like you kind of have to pick and choose what you're gonna give up, right? Because like and if it was me, and I think he came to a different decision with trying to make sure to try to stop the threes and whatever, it's just like, because like, especially in that first half, it's like they're doing this on us regardless of who's guarding them anyway. It doesn't matter how close dude is, like it doesn't matter how close our dude is, how good that defense is, they're just knocking them down, right? Like at that point, you just kind of be like, we can at least try and stop the bleeding on the boards, right? Because what I think it they had, I think they. Let me pull this up. Because I want my numbers correct.
Yeah.
But like, I think Baylor finished with wait, how do I know that? Okay, looking at this right here. Baylor finished with 14 offensive boards. The Zags got one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like more than 14, man.
That's why I'm questioning this particular source on this. Hold up.
Because they were so dominant. Maybe because even the defensive rebounds felt like offensive rebounds. Because it looks like they were just kind of crushed after some possessions. Like that one shot and goal. And then that was just going to open up for offense anyway.
Yeah, it's like, okay, ESPN 16 offensive rebounds for Baylor on the night. The Zags, ESPN, got 5, but it looks like basically all of them were just like the ball going out of bounds because no one is credited with, because only one offensive rebound is credited to a player. So Yeah, basically, but like they controlled the boards.
Yeah.
Like they and like when they control if you, they're controlling the boards, and especially early they were knocking down everything. They cooled off, and like if I was Mark Few, I was thinking like if I was Mark Few, I'd make sure my players like they shot 60% from deep or whatever, like that half or right at they're an amazing 3-point shooting team, but they don't shoot like that.
Yeah.
Right, so like they're gonna cool off, but like and like there was a stretch where Baylor wasn't making shots, I think, in the second half, but like Gonzaga wasn't making them like they needed to either. And
Yeah.
again, that defensive intensity bothered Gonzaga all game long. Also, Corey, like Kispert, he basically just he disappeared.
He got smothered. That was like
Like,
I was excited for this game for Corey Kispert because I was like, this is supposed to be one of your lottery picks. Like this is one of your go-to guys. This is 6'7", big dude. Like we've been talking about him as one of the best shooters the entire like year. And then like the farther we go, he starts to kind of just look like just a shooter. And then in this game, it's like that doesn't even fully work. It's a weird one here. Like I really thought they would have had a chance considering like the 2 lottery picks with Jalen Suggs and Corey Kispert, but
I think some of it
realize that.
I think some of it, especially early, was just like the level of intensity Baylor played with on the defensive end, right? And like I think some of it being real and like people would be like, it would have been they've been better prepared. Like I've seen like they've been better prepared if they had like been like a power conference. It's like no, they wouldn't, because like it's like there are two teams that are this good and they can't play themselves.
Exactly.
But like, but also like the way they limited Drew Timme was like they kind of didn't let him get the ball for real, and like he turned it over a fair bit as well, but like they didn't really let him get the ball really in places that like he would have liked to, probably a little lower, because he was like even when he was posting up, he was getting it kind of high, right? Like he was still making shots. Don't get me wrong. Like he finished, but like in this game, for example, he only took seven. He only had 7 field goal attempts. He hit 5
Yeah.
of them, but he only took 7. Right. Um, and like some degree, I think Gonzaga, and maybe this is because of the UCLA game, but like they didn't, especially early, they didn't come out with like the energy, right, that you'd seen from them in some of the other games,
Yeah.
right? Um, and like I think there was one point in the game. This was in the second half. Kispert got a block, I think it was. Like saved the ball from going out of bounds. Like granted, he threw it in like a just kind of open space, and like none of his teammates ran to go and get it. Like you gotta, and it's like as somebody who like coaches, like I would be high, right? If the rest of the
Yeah.
crew is like he does all that work. Like you can at least run to go and get it, and then Baylor scores. Like basically immediately off that getting the ball back that he saved, they score, and it's just like where's the effort?
They look dejected. Like I wonder how much that UCLA game took out of them. Like that was one of their biggest dog fights the entire year.
Yeah.
Like it really came down to a Jalen Suggs, not heave, but a Jalen
I mean,
Suggs.
that's how they won. Like, I feel like they probably could have won without it, but that's how the game ended, right?
Look, they would have, but it would have had to go to double OT.
Yeah.
And like Johnny Juzang is a guy, but Bleacher Report also showed him as like the number 48 prospect in the draft right now, which means he's like a second round guy, which doesn't mean he's there fully. Like they're even saying like it's just come back for another year, show us what you got. And That dude in Tyree Campbell with his wonderful hair. I know some of y'all was hating. Calvin, I think it was you.
No, it was not.
But no, if a dude like Johnny Juzang can push you that far, then what you're working
I
with
mean,
Baylor is a completely different conversation, right?
yeah, but like I also feel like keep in mind with like UCLA and also with honestly most teams that played Gonzaga or like it's happened frequently, right? It's just like in order for UCLA to hang around like they did for real, like they played amazing,
Yeah.
right? Like they played amazing to hang around with Gonzaga, and they were down and like they went in down one at the half, right? And like they could second half they continue to play their asses off, and then like they get and like that's it's just good enough to get you OT,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like it's like they played amazing, and that was good enough to hang around, and like and make no mistake, right? UCLA played good basketball to get there, even though like they didn't play their regular season wasn't great. Like their postseason was good, but their regular season wasn't. But like they like played great basketball to get to that point to play Gonzaga. They played great basketball against Gonzaga, and then when it's all said and done, like they still went home, right? The kind of game where like if you play basically anybody else, like
Yeah.
you're probably up double digits, and that kind of illustrates the gap between like Baylor and Gonzaga and like everybody else, right? And like like on the other side, right? Baylor played Houston, and that game disappointed me because I was I was just expecting a better game, being real, right? But like Houston's offense was giving them nothing except for like Sasser, who like scored basically all their points, which again, just a general reminder: one dude can't beat a team. It don't really matter who that dude is, whether he puts up 1 or 100. Like if one dude is scoring all of your points, like literally all of your points, you're not winning that game, right? But like they stomped on Houston early, like they did with Gonzaga, right?
Yeah.
And like and like because like I watched the entire game, even though like it was kind of clear after a while, right? But just like and like Houston got their stuff together. They had a decent second half, but like it wasn't good enough to claw out of a 20-point hole.
Yeah.
And there was some of that with Gonzaga, except like like Baylor kept the pressure up. And truthfully, like it and like Gonzaga like shot at a higher percentage than Baylor did, right, from the field. And they shot more free throws, even though they didn't make more.
Mm.
Um, and Baylor actually shot well from the free throw line, which is something they struggled with all year. Um, but like
Boys came to play.
they did, they like that's what it boils down to. They came to play. They took advantage of their size and physicality. They took the one dude who could kind of deal with that, especially for controlling rebounds. They took him out to defend the guards, and that went as well as you would expect, possibly worse. And like Gonzaga, they did. I'm not gonna say few didn't adjust. He tried to make adjustments, but like he didn't. I guess he didn't make the adjustments that he would have needed to. And like with some of it, there's not a whole lot of adjustments to make. Too much. Like when they're knocking down everything, wouldn't you have your hand in their face? It's like, granted, that's not going to keep up, but that's the problem.
Yeah.
And like, it's one of those games where it's kind of like, I don't know. It feels like I really don't know what to say here. It's like, truth be told, like it's one of those where you kind of feel like it'd probably be a closer game if they actually had have played that game during the regular season. Like when you feel just because like if nothing else, Gonzaga has seen like they've seen Baylor before.
Yeah.
Now if Baylor comes out playing like this, like it's just a hard game to win, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of what you do, like knocking down everything, like getting it felt like all the offensive boards, right? Just controlling the glass, hitting at a ridiculous percentage, especially from deep early, and like just being downright antagonistic defensively, which I'm here for. I just would have liked Gonzaga to finally get a chip, but outside of that, like Baylor was their play was amazing, honestly.
Yeah. Like
And,
hands down, Baylor was just the best team. They looked like the most talented team, and almost to like play devil's advocate, I almost feel like their final four games before this were precursors to what's happened to like the next level. Like Houston's supposed to have like this defense that's
well,
supposed to
yeah, like
stop you, right?
yeah,
And
that's like, and it didn't at all
didn't even
against Baylor.
budged.
Like and like that was the wild and like part of me when watching the Houston game, like that's kind of the wild thing, right? Because like you look at the numbers, Houston turns teams into chuckers, and so you would think even if like they didn't turn Baylor into chuckers, Baylor doesn't shoot like they shot, and but like they did,
Yeah.
like
It was like,
what?
I really feel like in both games, I feel like the coaches unleashed their professional prospects, the guys who were supposed to be like the top dogs of the team. I feel like they were unleashed in like these last two games, and we just saw that Baylor's dudes are ready. Like
Yeah,
Jared Butler, Macy Teague, all of them boys ready. And they could come back for another year and run it back if they wanted.
that would be horrifying, but they're also not going to do that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like you if you're them, like you go ahead and go to the like you've done the only thing you really like dudes try to do for real in college. Like go and get your ring. I mean, like go and make your money. You got your ring.
Oh, I don't think you understand, bro. Wait, no. I know you do understand. We fanboyed over Baylor's recruiting class. Think about that, bro.
Like, what would be fun, even though it probably won't happen, if for no other reason than reality, is if like they basically run this championship back next year. Because Gonzaga is expected to have Chet Holmgren, like he isn't committed, but that's who he's expected to commit to, and like Baylor and their boys come through, and like it's just and we're basically running this back in a year. Like that'd be entertaining if nothing else.
Dude, I think that would be some terrifying, like, you should probably just go ahead and throw those two teams in the G League bubble right now type experience. Because as far as I'm concerned, when we shake everything up, like, let's say 10 years from now, of the dudes that are on Baylor's roster, I think 5 of them will have their time in the NBA. At least 5. And then if we add in their recruiting class, they just got Hunter Salas. They have a freshman there now, Julian Strother, who is promising. Like, I might be projecting here, but what I see from Gonzaga is if you stay there long enough and you produce, there's going to be a chance that you get some type of love. And then Baylor bringing in what, a top 10 recruit,
Mm-hmm.
and then Langston Love, who's gonna fit in perfectly with the guards, who's 6'3", he a bulldog, he's surgical, he's a shooter, and he gonna play hard nose defense. Like, and then we got dudes like LJ Cryer who are just gonna get a year better, who's on the bench. Yeah, nah, that would be a super team, bro.
Once again, Calvin McGowan, hope you enjoyed yourself. Um, if you are watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, leave something in the comments. Um, you can also listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. You made it this far, once again, thank you. I hope you got a lot done of whatever it was you were working on while listening to this. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.